So we need to appreciate something about the Chicano movement, because the Chicano movement is at the forefront of addressing immigration reform. The Chicano movement is right there involved in addressing the issues of the community, because the Chicano movement is about civil rights. And this is why we have courses like this in the Chicano history, in the Chicano Studies department here at Cal State Dominguez Hills. The movement is constantly being redefined as a configuration of political intersections, as a configuration of linguistic intersections, of cultural intersections, of economic intersections. And so the Chicano movement and Chicano studies demands a continuous appraisal, especially as the ongoing process of globalization and the relocation of peoples and cultures characterizes the experience. So let's take a look at contemporary resistance movements within the Chicano community to understand this phenomenon.
When a farm worker calls with an issue or a problem, we stop, because this is farm worker centered. When we say food sovereignty and food justice, it comes from right from that very core of the people working the land and from the land. And I am going into the fields as a farm worker, and I will become the farm worker, and I will see what is possible or not. And I will be with them. And that's the way it is. Once I'm there, it's what I am. I really believe in the family farming system. And I have friends that are not Latinos, that are not Mexicans, that are struggling to keep their family farms. And I believe we have to have that. We have to support that as farm workers. That's part of our liberation, is to have a system that doesn't treat us like machines or animals.
Valdemar Velasquez, President of the Farm Labor Organizing Committee, Central Labor Council, Toledo, Ohio. Ohio Executive Board Member of the Ohio AFL-CIO. Brothers and sisters, I want to speak specifically to the legalization aspect of this resolution. The first, which has been spoken about already now, is the issue of compliance. If we are in a nation of laws, we have to give people a way in which they can comply with the law. And I got to remind you that crossing the border without papers is a misdemeanor. It is not a felony. It's like you running a red light or running a stop sign, okay? But you got the ability to make that right. America, this is a law that gets broken, that we have no way to make it right. We have to have a way for workers to comply and get everybody in compliance, including employers. Remember, for every undocumented worker in this country, there's an undocumented employer taking advantage of those people. Secondly, I want to address the attacks that we're going to get as a labor movement from these talking heads on radio and TV. They're going to say, there's those labor guys again. All they're doing is doing this amnesty. I say to them, so what? Amnesty is an American tradition and an American principle that's embedded in our institutions in this country. See, they don't call it amnesty. They give it another name. Like in our system of jurisprudence, right? They call it plea bargaining, right? You cop to a higher crime and you get forgiven for that. You get an amnesty for that, cop to a lesser crime. You know, it goes all the way to the President of the United States. They don't call it amnesty there. They call them presidential pardons, right? These guys break the law, they get forgiven. Okay, so they got something that they didn't deserve, right? Going with one of the most famous ones is Scooter Libby. Remember that guy? And remember his buddy in the White House who deferred his prison sentence? He got amnesty. I'd like to see him on Lou Dobbs and ask him what he thinks about amnesty. The third is what has been spoken here, and that's the issue of moral imperative. My brother and sister, with all respect to the religions of the world, my Judeo-Christian heritage tells me the following. In the Old Testament, Ezekiel 22, or not Ezekiel, Exodus 22 warns us not to mistreat or oppress the alien. The book of Numbers, chapter 15, verse 15 says that we shall govern the alien with the same laws as we govern ourselves. So let's get right with God, because if you don't, Ezekiel Ezekiel 22, 29 and 30 warns that he's going to be really ticked off if we do these things to these aliens. Finally, in the New Testament, those of us who call ourselves Christians, we are recipients of the greatest amnesty in the world. Didn't Jesus come and take all our sins, everything we ever done wrong, all the laws we ever broke, took him to the cross and say you're forgiven? And who are we to deny him to anybody else? And finally, my brothers and sisters, let us be like the founders of the great unions in this hall. They were all immigrants. Many of them came here without papers. So they start organizing the people, and now immigrants are joining unions at the greatest rate of any segment of the population. I'd say let's be like the founders of your unions who came to this country and organized unions. They didn't say what country you are from. They only said, which side are you on? I'm going to be on your side.
Queremos que los consumidores sepan que el tomate que ellos consumen son basados en la explotación de los trabajadores agrícolas.
Los supermercados básicamente compran tomate en las compañías donde trabajamos.
Ellos empujan a las compañías a bajar el precio más barato del mercado.
Y eso lo obliga al trabajador de no tener un aumento.
La cubeta pesa 32 libras. Por 32 libras nosotros ganamos 45 centavos. Y el precio de la cubeta nunca ha aumentado por hace 30 años.
En el trabajo que hacemos nosotros no tenemos derechos. En los casos más extremos, trabajadores se enfrentan a esclavitud moderna. Los supermercados tienen una influencia bastante grande. Por eso la coalición de trabajadores de Immokalee está llevando una campaña por comida justa.
Lo que estamos queriendo es 1 centavo más por cada libre tomate.
Join with the coalition of Immokalee workers to help make fair food a reality. Take action at ciw-online.org.
Some members of the Latino community are calling today's ruling vindication for what they called years of racially motivated and anti-immigrant policies enforced by Arpaio. Team 12's Kevin Kennedy's in the Live Alert Center with more of their reaction tonight. Kev?
Yeah, they are calling it a good day, but they are certainly not satisfied. Latino leaders want to see Arpaio in jail for his crime and hope his conviction sends a strong message to law enforcement all across the country.
It's
a day 24 years in the making.
I was very shocked. I couldn't believe it that a judge had finally realized all the damage that he's caused to so many families.
The migrant justice organization Puente Movement reacting after a judge finds former Sheriff Joe Arpaio guilty of criminal contempt.
I believe it's time he gets a taste of his own medicine.
Wearing Stop Arpaio and Arrest Arpaio shirts, members celebrate the ruling.
Many of our members here at Puente were targeted because of his racist practices.
One of those arrested, Noemi Romero, during a work raid in 2013.
I think it was just him taking advantage of the power that he had and just thinking he could go out of his ways and arrest all kinds of people.
A judge in some ways validating what many have long believed, while others are demanding much more from the new sheriff.
One step closer to finding justice for our communities, Penzone has to carry out the rest.
Puente wants all ICE officers out of the 4th Avenue jail, determined to end what the group calls the history of racism. Most of the members I spoke with say no amount of jail time is sufficient when compared to the pain and suffering Arpaio caused so many in the Latino community for so many years. Kevin Kennedy, 12 News.
All right, Kev, thanks.
Mi nombre es Oscar Sánchez. De trabajar en Vermont Cargo ya tengo 5 años. Antes nos enfermamos, teníamos que trabajar así, como estuviéramos enfermos. Y ahora pues, gracias a Dios, mi vida cambió. Porque si yo me siento mal, yo tengo una clínica donde ir. Y eso es gracias a la campaña de Chicano.
The working conditions are extremely arduous and difficult, and many car wash workers have chronic diseases or have environmental health conditions that are the result of their work. The car wash workers were beginning to organize, and I was actually very excited and moralized to hear that it was the steel workers that were leading that. What we saw was this was an opportunity for St. John's to support the organizing effort, so that they know that if they join the Clean Car Wash campaign, they'll have access to free medical and dental and mental health services. We feel very strongly that this is a model that we can support, which is be the healthcare provider as part of an organizing drive, so that workers understand what it is that they're building.
One of the great things about the car wash model is that it's rooted in the people and where they want to go and what they want to do. The goal is, how do we build power for workers so that they can make and implement the change they want to see?
Pues ahora me siento orgulloso de ver conocido la campaña de United Steelworkers, y mi orgullo para mí es que ya tengo un mes que ganamos un sindicato. Tenemos un mes de estar ya apoyados con la campaña de Clean Car Wash.
The role of labor unions and community-based organizations becomes ever more important, because this is about values, and it's about what we want this country to be. And I think these new alliances and new ways of doing things, and these value-based coalitions and relationships and organizing strategies are what's needed to reinvigorate the labor movement.
The labor community partnerships that are happening on the ground between worker centers is really where I see a lot of hope. I see a lot of deep trust and relationship growing and developing, and a lot of potential for movements that we need to address the very, very serious conditions that we're in.
De darle ánimo a otros compañeros, decirles ir a donde ellos trabajan y decirles que luchen como nosotros luchamos, y eso es lo fuerte de la campaña, porque la campaña los va a apoyar también. Que nosotros vamos para adelante con apoyar a otros compañeros para vencer a cualquier patrón aquí en California.